controversial subjects with the facts can be tense, but we are a science here to make things make sense.
So today we are talking about meditation. And that's it. Okay, thank you so much for listening. Okay, but something that I think you do a lot, Mitch.
I do not do a lot, but definitely over even this year, I've been exploring a bit more with it, tried to get into a good habit of doing it and fell in.
Some people call him Meditation Mitch.
Wait, who says that?
Me.
Oh my God, are people saying that about me?
Me, because I'm like, you're being humble. Like, I feel like all this holiday I'd be like, oh, hey, Mitch. And I just like open a door like slowly and you would just be like sitting literally cross-legged with your arms out and
I don't do this,
your
though.
finger
I don't
pointer and your thumb, and you would be like,
no.
Yes, Greg. And you'd be like, oh, sorry, I was just meditating.
I just hear you coming and I like rustle to that position and I'm just like, oh, you interrupted me. Oops.
That's what it feels like. I must say, I'm impressed. I just feel like you're meditating a lot.
Well, okay. So today we're going to talk about a couple studies. We each have a study that relates to the science behind meditation, but I will say what prompted this sort of discussion and us wanting to do this podcast was that, we have been on a vacation for a month and we were in nature a lot, and I guess we both were realizing the impact of work on our brains, and then
a pandemic and social unrest.
There's a lot going on.
Dictator in the American presidency. And people losing their jobs.
The world is wild.
Okay.
And I think we both know about meditation. We've actually done an ASAP Science video in the past, which was many years ago now, on meditation. So neither of us have been necessarily against it, but for whatever reason, neither of us have ever really dove into it. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and you got Simone Gertz. I'm so bad.
Yes.
Her new amazing merch.
Her everyday calendar.
Yeah, and I was seeing that you were using it to tick off when you meditated.
Well, that's when I realized, so her calendar is basically, it has every day of the year and you can click it almost like an advent calendar or something where it lights up. And every day you do the thing, it lights up. But then I started falling behind because something happened. Like I injured myself one week on my back and then I felt like I couldn't sit up straight and do it, and then I felt bad that I was missing days, and it gave me a lot of anxiety that there was just like a chunk of lights that weren't there. And
but that's the whole point of it.
Yeah, but I have too much anxiety, as we've talked about, and seeing that I had already ruined the everyday calendar, I was like, I need to like start fresh.
Oh wow, okay, this is a separate thing, but that is now going to be my everyday calendar, because it's like, no, the whole point is that you just, it's
just tracking. It doesn't have to be every day.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, that's so funny. Okay, that is not the point of that calendar.
Yeah. Where were we going with this?
Well, okay, that's interesting. You have anxiety. You self-identify as having anxiety. Meditation, yes. I think maybe must be something that really helps
so
you.
There's some amazing free courses online about, well, one I took was the science of mindfulness, I think, and one was the psychology of Buddhism, and I took these, they're on Coursera, and free courses that you can check out.
Wow.
Were really, really fascinating. It's like, professors just explaining not only the teachings of Buddhism or like the science of mindfulness and meditation. So I found those really helpful and inspiring. And then I just found this time in nature, and hopefully it, comes with me through the next months or the next years.
In this concrete jungle they call Toronto.
I felt very connected, and nature made me feel more inspired to meditate. So that's why I'm just like, hopefully it continues. But.
Cool. So what did you like? Tell me your studies. I feel like you've been learning a lot about this. Well, and I'm just sitting back feeling bad about myself. Like, well, I'm just going to watch another YouTube video on TikTok.
Well, okay. The study I actually this was not from either of my courses. I was just looking for some modern studies to see something interesting, because I know we've covered studies on meditation, and I was interested when I came across this. Can meditation impact people around you? So this study was saying, we know there's lots of studies that show meditation impacts a person's well-being, but the main question is, could we detect benefits in others who interacted with the person that was benefiting from meditation? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So
like if I meditate, will you benefit from it?
Oh my gosh, I hope so.
Well, so basically they put the participants into pairs. So some of them were just friends, some were romantic relationships, some were family, but they all knew each other because they had to like be interacting with one another. And then one in each pair meditated for 15 minutes daily for, I believe, 8 weeks. So I think they were put through like kind of an 8-week program. And
my study has 8 weeks too. I think that's probably must be like
psychological
like, meditation.
Or just like, yeah, true. Long enough to be like, see, it worked. Basically, they had them keep diaries, both people in the pairs, about how they're feeling, their mental well-being, and all those kind of things. And what they found maybe surprisingly, maybe not, was that both partners experienced fewer negative emotions after meditating.
Oh my gosh. So you can just meditate and then I can just chill over
Reap
here on
the
TikTok
benefits.
and reap the benefits.
Like actually, yes. So
Cool.
that was actually I was reading some discussion about this online and people were like, oh, so I just need to find a partner who's like really chill and great at meditating and then I'll be great. And that is true. But the caveat to that is that the non-meditating partner did not feel the positive influence of meditation.
Oh, wait.
They had fewer negative emotions.
Oh, okay. Okay,
Right?
that's
which you could construe as a positive influence.
No, but I also in my head I'm like, wait, no, that's not like that's like it's just like less negative.
Less
is not
negative, but not as
positive.
much positive. So the meditator themselves was feeling also the positive influences on their well-being, active positive.
The
influence.
meditator.
And I just added a cute little Dalai Lama quote. Oh, he's so cute. I love the Dalai Lama. He's also very inspiring and just like a kind, compassionate person.
Isn't that like we were, on our time off asking each other lots of deep questions and he was like your number one idol.
I wouldn't say number one. He was just
Or
an example of a kind of person that I think has impacted the world in such a wonderfully positive way. Like there's and I don't know everything about him, so hopefully he's not like this problematic queen. But
oh my god, cancel the Dalai Lama. Here we are on ASAP Science. We're going to cancel the Dalai Lama.
In my experience and hearing him speak, it's just like literally a human being filled with love trying to spread that around the world in a way that doesn't feel problematic at all to me. This quote just says, just as ripples spread out when a single pebble is dropped into water, the actions of individuals can have far-reaching effects. So this idea is, even as a meditator, you're not just impacting the first ripple or the pebble hitting the water, you're actually spreading that outwards.
Wow, that's beautiful. Does it count as meditating just hearing that, taking that? Did I just meditate? No, that's not
I
meditating.
think you just meditated.
Okay, well, that's actually a question I have for you. What's your process for meditation? Because I have a specific way of doing what I call meditation. Never read a book, never done anything, but it's just like I just made it up and I love
think
it. But
that's okay.
What's your process having learned these things?
Okay. I don't want anyone to take anything too seriously from me. I'm interested in this, but I definitely am not that
Well, the Dalai
educated.
Lama is your number
My
one.
idol.
So
My American Idol. Kelly Clarkson, move out of the way.
He's from India. Okay.
He's not from India.
Oh.
He's from
Where's he
Tibet.
from?
Tibet.
Oh, yeah, I know. Wow. Canceled. Greg Brown. I just erupt through the floor. Okay.
So, what was I going to say? So, my first real foray into meditation, obviously, I'd known about it and kind of thought about it and maybe played around with this idea in like yoga classes sometimes at the end. What do they call it? Like Shavasana or something? When you
Oh, yeah, when I nap.
when you
Yep.
sleep.
Okay.
So, I took before COVID, like maybe a year and a half ago or 2 years, a in-person course. I remember those things. Basically at a Zen Buddhist temple. And it was really, really cute. It was like the cutest Zen monk who was this maybe woman in her 40s who was just adorable. And we just went and we would do these like walking meditations and then Zen meditation, which from my understanding is a specific style of meditation.
Okay.
I don't know enough to really know the differences, but I know, for example, in the Zen meditation, we wouldn't close our eyes. We would find a spot on the floor and fixate on it the whole time. And the idea was, at first she kind of sat us down and said, I want you to imagine like you're out with your friends, like close your eyes, picture you're at a park, you're on the swings, you're having fun.
You're like visualizing.
Yeah. And then she had a moment where she said, that's what we don't want your brain to start wandering. Like the reason we're going to stare and keep noticing a spot on the ground is because your brain will want to, even with your eyes open, start imagining other things. But especially with your eyes closed, it goes other places. And so it's kind of an interesting way to just remind yourself, like, I actually want to be visually focused on something in the real world.
Okay.
But beyond that, for me, what it's turned into, and this may not be what it is for everyone, is just slowly kind of turning off my brain, to be honest.
Imagine, like, for me, what I do is I go on Twitter.
So I focus on my phone and scroll.
So turning off your brain, that's like, I mean, that's what everyone is trying to do. But
yeah, well, I think there are different
so
kinds. So like mindfulness meditation is being, I think, very aware and trying to experience things in the moment. So even when you're eating something, really taking the time to soak it in and be grateful and really be present in that moment.
Oh, cool.
Whereas I feel like my Zen meditation is, I picture it like, the natural state of your brain from an evolutionary standpoint is to constantly be aware, right? And especially me who's anxious, it's like any little sound. What is that? Any bug. Oh my God, I'm going to die. So your brain is like doing all this processing, even when you're just walking, like your brain is taking things in, choosing which things to ignore, but there's millions of signals. And that's sort of the natural state of your mind. And so when they look at brains of meditators, they realize while they're meditating, all those natural functions, which would otherwise be happening in somebody just sitting and daydreaming or whatever, turn off. And only certain parts of the brain are firing. And so it's almost like giving your brain a break is how I think of it.
Okay, well, that's going to lead right into the study that I was talking about that I am going to talk about.
Present, future,
My
past,
brain
they're all the
doesn't
same
work.
thing when you're a meditator. Right?
Exactly. That's why I don't know tenses, because I'm meditator. But so yeah, while meditating, you're using the default mode network, which is the part of your brain activated when your mind is at rest and not focusing on the outside world. So that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Default mode network, it's what's happening when you're not purposely trying to do something else to it.
And it's found to increase your memory.
So wait, what is
The
default?
study.
Okay.
Essentially wwhat they were studying were people meditating, and with brain scans able to see that their default mode network was activated, and then essentially what they do with this study is just they know from other research that can increase memory, self-awareness, and goal setting. So it's like unlike what you were saying where it can affect people around you positively, it can affect you positively. Mm-hmm. And during meditation, brain scans see increased activity in regions associated with decreased anxiety and increased pain tolerance, which I thought was kind of interesting.
I could use that, girl.
Yeah, you pinch this guy. Oh, he goes through the roof screaming.
Truly. I hate being hurt.
And then I love it. Okay, after 8 weeks of meditation, gray matter was more dense in areas of learning, memory processing, and emotional regulation.
That is crazy.
So
the brain actually, it's like literally like a muscle.
So that's why it's interesting, because you're describing your process as trying to turn off your brain.
Yeah, not all of it, but just the parts that are like always running.
Yeah, and it's interesting that can have positive physiological impacts on your brain. I think that's why people have there hasn't been that much of a backlash against meditation. It seems like net positive for a lot of people. And so I have two things. Okay, one, I'm going to explain what I do, and then I'm going to try and figure out if it even counts. So what I do is I do keep my eyes open. So I mean, for me, I usually stare at something organic. So it's like right now we're in our office, I would look at wood. But if I'm outside and we've had the privilege of being in nature, I would look at a tree. Mm-hmm. And what I honestly just do is I've talked about this before on the podcast. I picture oxygen going in through my nose, into my lungs. I end up breathing so slowly. Sometimes it freaks me out. But I breathe in through my nose so slowly, and I picture oxygen molecules going through my alveoli into my blood, and then I picture the CO2 leaving my blood going into my lungs and breathing out. And I just think really about that. Yeah. But then sometimes if I'm looking at a plant, I'll be like, my CO2 is being given to you through photosynthesis. Your oxygen is being given to me, and I connect. You know what I mean? I'm not
thinking,
but I'm not
how
turning
the
off my brain. But I am in the sense that I'm turning off my brain from a lot of the real world stressors that are constantly there. So that's a completely made up thing that I do on my own. But I always feel rejuvenated and less anxious after. Anyways, I'm trying to justify that I'm not wasting my time.
Of course you're not wasting your time. That's absolutely meditating. I think meditating can be whatever you want. I was going to say one really interesting thing I've heard is the reason that most or many people focus on their breath is because it's one of the only physiological or body properties that's both automated, so you don't have to think about it, but can also be intentional.
Yeah, that's
so
interesting.
You actually connect with something and then you force it to be intentional. And I think from my perspective, the reason we focus on breath is just because it's something to focus on. That's not everything else. Your brain wants to think about what you're having for dinner and what that person said to you and how many things you have. And then if you can just remind yourself to think about the in and out, it's just kind of like not turning off, but reminding yourself okay, I'm just going to kind of ignore those things that are out there while I think about breath.
Speaking of pain, one thing I also do is I'll hold I'll be like, I will breathe in and I will hold it, or breathe out and I will hold it until it is so painful. And I'll be like, this is what dying feels like.
Sick.
And then I'll take the breath in and be like, whoa, what a privilege to be able to breathe in. You know what I mean? It's just there will be points in our lives where that will be a moment. And I try and
wait, well, what will be a moment?
I don't know, stop breathing. Like we're all
Oh.
gonna stop breathing, and I think about
Yeah.
like, you know, what that would feel like. I like make myself feel that, and then like breathe again, obviously. But it's like
You
sometimes-
told me that one
it's
time. Like one
crazy.
time, Greg was having a bath or something, having like a chill, you know, candles, relaxing thing, and I was just like, I don't know what I was doing in the house. He was meditating, obviously. And then after he came out, you know, like all sweaty and flush out of the
I
bath.
looked hot.
And he's like, do you ever just stop breathing so much that it actually is so painful, and that's how you meditate? And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? I would never, first of all, in a hot body of water, holding my breath like I could faint and pass out. That is the scariest thing that could ever happen to me. There goes the anxiety.
Wow, that's so funny. Yeah, no,
I literally would be like, I'm afraid of actually passing out and then turning over and being in water and suffocating.
oh my god.
Drowning.
Okay, well, check up on me every once in a while if I'm in the bath for too long. Question.
Yes.
So this is something we were talking about. Speaking of death, distraction. So like we've been talking a lot about how I think in many ways as humans we are going about our day with this inevitable knowingness that like death exists. Like we will die, people will die, but I think most importantly, like we will die. So a lot of things are put in place, a lot of things we do to distract ourselves from that, whether it's shopping, drugs, work, like you're like people are distracting themselves.
Sure.
Is meditation another form of distraction, or is it turning off the distractions? Because like I was thinking like, okay, is like the whole point of meditating is that you're like getting rid of the distractions and being sort of like present. I think, I don't know, I'm just making that up, but that's just like what I think. But do you think that maybe also in the end, meditation and doing that is just another way of distracting yourself from the inevitability of death? Is that really dark? I don't know.
I don't think that's dark at all. Like,
Okay.
I think so. So first of all, I think we should try and reach out to somebody who would be like a professional meditator or yogi practicer. Or
I don't know.
like,
It's like at
it'd be
Tweet the
nice to
Dalai
have,
Lama.
because these are obviously just our opinions. I don't know why I'm like caveating this. I just mean I'm not an expert, so me answering your question, I feel silly.
I believe you said you did a couple courses, read a couple books.
I
You're
have read a book or two.
scholar, honey.
I think it absolutely is a distraction, but I think people would agree that you can qualify distractions in as good and bad on a scale, obviously, right? So some distractions are healthy, some are unhealthy. And I think for most people, a moderate amount of meditation would never really be unhealthy. Maybe there's levels of obsession that you could use it to escape reality, and maybe that would be unhealthy for some people. So I think it's a different kind of distraction, but I think that exercise is a distraction, and that's a healthy distraction for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Like it's actually helps your body, maybe clears your mind. But again, it can probably be taken to the extreme where it no longer is that healthy, depending on how you're defining that term.
Everything in moderation, including meditation.
Maybe. I mean, I'm sure some monks
people,
perhaps
yeah,
would
would be
disagree,
like-
who could sit there for weeks on end and barely eat anything and meditate. But like, would we call that healthy? I don't know.
That's a very interesting question. Is that pushing things too far? Or is that just like a weird Western view that we have of like, well, you have to at some point in your life, like work or whatever.
I don't know. I think so.
We've also
One
been
of my
reading Karl Marx, speaking of like, whether or not we should all be working. It's like, maybe not. Okay.
One of my favorite sort of gurus, and I know you know this because I talk about him a lot. His name's Sadhguru. He's an Indian guru, and I guess in India, it's very common that there's lots of sort of spiritual leaders. And he talks a lot about how, you know, the Dalai Lama is similar to this. Like he loves science. They're always interested in looking into the brain and what meditation does. Like even Sadhguru's gone into MRIs while he's meditated, and they've like looked at his
That's
brain.
what these studies were about. I wonder. No, he wouldn't.
Yeah, because
He
people are
would've said.
interested. Like if you're a master, if you teach this, and you can kind of
that default mode network would be activated.
They made some joke where they were like, it was weird when you were in there, your brain, it was like you were dead. You know what I mean? That's what they said.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, but where was I going with that? Oh, his interpretation is like, you know, we can explore amazing things with science, and we can improve the quality of lives in some ways. Certainly, you know, our physical bodies, but if you think over the last few hundred years through the advent of science, like, are people happier? Are we better off than before in every way? You probably think not necessarily, right? Like there's lots of, and in a lot of ways, maybe it's because we don't spend that time on the inner self. Like we do spend a lot of time on our education and thinking a lot. We spend a lot of time on our physical bodies and nourishing ourselves with food and exercise. But there is this whole other realm of mental satisfaction and like
That
actually
came from when you had to like
practicing.
write a letter with a quill to your loved one.
Wait, what?
Like I'm just saying, like, are you talking about back in the day when people would everything was slower because people didn't have technology at their fingertips?
Well, no, I just mean that I don't know if people are necessarily happier today, even though we've had these amazing, groundbreaking advances in science.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, I'm like, that's what he's saying. Like, even though science and technology is progressing, something has been lost, and maybe it is that sort of like slowness and that with yourself.
I'm not sure if it's a slow. I don't know if people had more inner peace before necessarily.
Oh, okay.
I think his thing is that we've never spent enough
Like people
time.
didn't have inner peace when they thought the demons was like the plague was killing them. You know, they literally thought it was a demon.
Yeah, and they obviously had hard physical lives and there was disease and stuff that killed them, but were they less happy as people? Maybe
Churning
not.
butter seems meditative.
True.
You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah,
all you had to
simple
do one day was
processes.
churn butter, I'm sure you're meditating.
Anyway, I think it's just something interesting, and it's not just to do with meditation. It's about actually taking the time to think about sort of your mental faculties and how can I make sure that if I'm going to go to the gym on a regular basis, or if I'm going to study on a regular basis, or if I'm going to, I don't know, XYZ, these things that people kind of get obsessed with because we do think that they're important, and I do still think they're important, but there's kind of this other realm that's like, why do we ignore it completely?
Well, it's kind of,
or
I
not
guess-
get taught it from a young age.
Yeah, I think of therapy like that. I always have thought
yeah.
of therapy as going to the gym for my brain. It's like my brain is the most important thing in my body, so I might as well go to the gym for it, which is therapy. But I guess
Absolutely.
therapy is linked to
I
meditation.
think
a
meditation
lot.
would be a piece of that. It's
Yeah.
kind of in the same realm of like, let's think about how you process the world and where you're getting hung up on. Because the truth is, and I've suffered this, and maybe you've suffered this as well, like there's so many people in this world that have accomplished their goals and aren't necessarily so much happier, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So something, I was listening to a podcast the other day by Sadhguru, and he was like, failure is so easy to come by, right? Like to fail easy, and often, like people say that all the time, and so to fail and be unhappy is like pretty common, whatever. But to fail, but to succeed and be unhappy is a true tragedy. And there's so many people in this world who have quote unquote succeeded but are still unhappy. So we're obviously telling ourselves that improving all these things, being better, being smarter, having more money, being more successful will make us happy, but then it's not. And that lesson comes up over and over again where people say money doesn't buy happiness.
Yeah.
Of course, money can give you a lot of great things. And yes, money can, to some degree, buy happiness. But there's another level of inner peace that.
Oh, and I don't even like, yeah. Oh my God, money cannot buy. I don't know. I just feel like every time I like meet a really rich person, I'm like, man, you're worms in your brain.
I think that's just a perspective.
Yeah,
like,
and
there
maybe,
are
like,
people
yeah.
like we come from a position of privilege and have enough money to not worry about it. I
Yeah,
think people
for sure.
without that same privilege would say, okay, well, you're so ignorant to not realize what it
Yeah.
means to not actually have money and be worried about, will I be able to buy food or
For sure.
pay for rent?
But it is a very equalizing practice to do meditation. It doesn't involve, like, I mean, I guess there is a way in which people like have to pay money to do courses and things like that. But I feel like at the very heart of it, it's something that doesn't involve having to spend money or have an object
that's true.
or like, you know, it's not taking up resources in this world. So if
Yeah.
it is a form of distraction from, you know, the inevitability
It's an accessible one.
It's an accessible one. And it's also one that's like, it's like if your distraction is like buying things on Amazon for retail therapy, it's like, well, that's like objectively going to do damage to like the earth. And
Right.
like whereas like
and requires
sitting down and
assets,
staring at a
requires internet.
spot on your wall is like not gonna do that.
One other thing I wanted to bring up. So I mentioned the book series that I just finished called Broken Earth. It's a trilogy.
By
3
N.K.
books.
Jemisin.
Yeah, N.K. Jemisin. It was amazing. Greg actually introduced me to it. He hasn't read it yet, but he bought it because he had heard that it was great, right?
Yeah, and
So-
I've just read The City We Became, which is her newest book, which was really great too.
So I love this book. This series, it reminded me of that Harry Potter feeling because it's pretty easy to read, and
People say it's
kind
one of the best sort of
it's like kind of
fantasy.
magical. It's like kind of pulls you in because it's almost like a thriller, and you just need to know the answer. Like there's all these unanswered questions that keep you going the whole time. But what I have found, and I really hope this lingers, but it shows the magic of what a book can do to you. So in this book, if you've ever sort of like watched Avatar, it reminds me of that, where certain individuals are almost connected to
The Last
nature.
Airbender or Blue
The Last Airbender.
Aliens?
Not
Okay.
Blue Aliens.
Okay, good.
Which, why are there like 4 more of those about to come out?
I know, when he was like, well, don't worry, everyone, the pandemic, we got lots of the Avatar. They're coming in 2021 and 2023 and 2020. I was like, wait, what,
Wait,
James
did
Cameron?
we ask for this?
I know. I was like, I thought you were at the bottom of the ocean still looking for things. Anyways.
Anyway, so Broken Earth, there's something about their connection and reading so much about, it's not like a connection to nature, but they really do, like when some of them lose this power, they actually lose their ability to like walk in the same way because they feel the world differently, because they feel it through like the symbiotic connections of cells.
Cool.
And so they can like, feel the earth and feel everything living basically. And I don't know, ever since reading that book, I don't know, maybe because I have this sort of, I do this whenever I get obsessed with a thing. You sort of think you're like a Jedi, or you think you're like, some kid's superhero.
Oh my God, you're an Avatar Last
I
Airbender
honestly
and
pretend.
Kate Jemisin Broken Earth.
Literally, when I'm meditating now, I actually feel like there's tendrils of connections to me to everything organic.
Did you say tendrils?
Yeah, why?
Tendrils?
I don't know how to spell. Why?
No, well, the City We Became book that I just read by her is all about tendrils that like come off of like the evil white things that are taking over New York City.
Well, maybe she uses that word in this book
Yeah,
too.
because that's
So,
like, and there's a
connected
tendril as the cover of it.
Oh, wow.
Welcome to our book club.
But yeah, I just find it beautiful, and it is weird, and I don't know if this is just a construct in my mind, but those tendrils for me do actually only come from things that are like nature. I feel like weirdly strung to those things.
Like in this room, it would be like the wood,
but
like,
not
or
for
would
me.
it have
It would
to be
literally
alive?
be the plants. Yeah,
Okay,
it would be the
interesting.
like alive things, but not necessarily alive. Like the ground would do it as well, like a solid dirt ground. But I think that is a bit
That
of
is
a
alive.
construct for me.
but not cement.
Yeah, not like rock, but I would still feel connected to that.
Rocks. It's like, okay, you're not living biologically, babe. Okay, get out of the way. I'm trying to look at something living. Moss. There you go.
Yeah.
That's cool. I'm so excited to read those books.
Yeah.
She's an amazing author, and
Yes,
Kate Jemisin,
if you're looking
reach out
for something to read, honestly, I became obsessed with it. As I told you, I've only read 5 books this year, and I read 3 in the last 3 weeks.
Also, though, Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, Parable of the Talents, I would also say
amazing,
is an essential read.
Definitely
Life-changing.
very profound, equally as amazing.
Hard to not be an activist
Harder to
after
read.
reading that. What do you mean harder to read?
Because it's kind of a little devastating, and also because of the world we live in right now. It was written in like the 90s, I think, and it's so accurate for today. Whereas N.K. Jemisin's
More of an
Broken
escape.
Earth is a fantasy to me.
Fair.
They're both sort of sci-fi, but this is so in a different world that you're able to just like let go of the real world problems.
I love science fiction so much, but it so often is that it's like very doomsday-y, and it's very like scary because you're like, oh wow, they're onto something here.
So before we end, how do we actually keep meditating? Which I guess is not a great question, because a good yogi would be like, you can't put that much pressure on yourself. But something I've had trouble with is sort of keeping up on I go like in sporadic bursts.
One thing I will say for you, Mitchell Moffat, everyone can listen into this very deep, sort of intimate conversation. I think
As we look at a camera lens and nod into each other's eyes.
You need to stop being so hard on yourself. It's like
everyone says that to me constantly. It doesn't help.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like, I think it's an internal. It's like you have to be able to meditate when you can, and when you're not, when you fall off of it for a week, that doesn't matter. You're still meditating. You're still going to meditate a week later. Like, I've been around you enough to know that you meditate often. So if you're not meditating every day, then that's not the end of the world. Like, as someone who sees you meditate more than I meditate, I still think I do that weird breath thing enough that when people talk to me and they're like, do you meditate? I'd be like, yeah, like I do. And like, that's, you know what I mean? So it's like, you just are so hard on yourself. Even that Simone thing is such a metaphor, because I see that now you're not using it. And it's like, that is the issue. It's like, the whole point of that actual calendar is to show you just like, this is when I did, this is when I didn't. And you take that information and you do what you need with it, but it's not to make you hate yourself. That's not the point of it. And so I would just say, like, be less hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And everyone, well, that was therapy. With Greg and Matt.
Well, I just on that note, like one thing I noticed recently, I'm so curious about the turning point for people in their journeys of really anything. So fitness, health, meditation, like those things that we all want to do. And then sometimes you see like a post of somebody who's like lost 150 pounds or something. You know what I mean? They like chronicle their journey over the last couple of years and how, like, what triggered it. So there's something recently for me, like I started running, and for the first time I've tried running like over the past decade on and off, but never, I'll do it for like 2 days and then stop for like a year. And then recently just something kicked where I was like, I like it suddenly. I used to hate it. Like, it used to always feel bad. And I don't know what that difference was. And maybe it's just timing. Maybe it's my body. Maybe it's my mentality. I don't know. And that's why I've been thinking about, like, for meditation, like, I enjoy it. So why am I not not always doing it? But why am I not doing it more?
I'm already just going to be like, I think I now run less than you, but I've always enjoyed running. But what I will tell you is you're going to stop. You're going to stop running. Winter will come, and like, it's just like, it's always a process. There's always going to be something. You're in a pandemic. There's so many reasons why these things are probably coming more easy to you because you don't have anything else to do.
Nothing else to do.
So it's like, and I just think that is something that, like,
fair.
The reason why I probably have run like objectively longer than you in my life, because I've been running since I was in high school, because I stop sometimes for 6 months. Then I pick it up, and I'm not like, it's not black and white.
It's like, okay, someone has a wavelength tattoo representing the ups and downs of life on his arm.
Exactly. But I really fundamentally,
it's Greg, by the way, if anyone doesn't know, he has a wavelength tattoo on his arm.
It's about energy, and it's about energy. But I do think that is something that, like, the running is a great example. It's just like, just enjoy the fact that you're enjoying it now, because you're not going to at some point, and then you are again.
Oh my god.
Then your knees are going to be too old, and then you're going to be doing like aerobics in a pool because you're going to be 75. You know what I mean?
The truth, enjoy it because you're enjoying it now. I need to live by that somehow, but it's very hard for me. I have a lot of time anxiety, and I have heard a quote that, like, lived with me really strongly for a long time, and I don't remember what the quote is, but it was something like, when I was, 19, I was like sad to have lost my beauty when I was 17, and then when I was 25, I looked at my 19-year-old self and was like jealous of the beauty that I had then, and then when I was 30, when I was 25, it's like always how you're like kind of grasping on to these things that you maybe have lost, but never really appreciating what you actually have in the moment.
No, that's what meditation's about.
Yeah,
live in the moment. Everyone's hot.
Time. Yeah.
Everyone's good looking. Honestly, and like people who are really good looking, I'm always like, red flag.
Hot. Everyone's good.
No, but they like, everyone is
Should
hot.
we just call that
they own
episode that? Everyone's hot.
Imagine an episode called Everyone's Hot and then hearing this like gushy meditation thing. But it's true. I really think that the hottest people in my life are the ones that are like not objectively the hottest. And in fact, kind of like being Australian, if you're really hot, red flag, got to prove to me that you're a good person. Okay, I don't know.
Wait, if you're Australian, you have to prove to you that you're a good person?
Yeah, I don't know. There's something going on. I always am a little.
I'm here for the Australians. No, I lived in Australia.
I
met a million amazing Australians.
No, there's definitely, and I know that they're out there. And when I meet an Australian, I say hello, Australian, and
prove it.
And then I say prove it. Prove you're not a little bit racist. Prove it that you're not. Prove it that you're not like frowning on people who don't take 12 months off to travel the world as if the world is their ownership. Anyways, whatever. Sorry to our Australian listeners. I actually love you, but you just have to prove it to me first. And same thing with hot people. I'm sure
they're all amazing.
Whenever I see hot person, prove to me that you're a person.
That's true. Yeah, that you are interesting and not so boring.
CrossFit is not a personality. Okay, guys? Okay. Drag. Wow. Maybe I should go meditate more. Okay. Love you frickin' all. Let us know anything you want us to know about meditation, any episodes you want us to be doing coming up. We're back to work. We need help. What should we do next?
I'm curious about people's opinions and advice and experiences. Like, I wish there was an easier form. I guess
hashtag
if you're on YouTube,
podcast.
Twitter, hashtag Sidenote podcast. Like, I actually want to know because I'm curious what your journeys have been, and maybe that can help inform what we do next. Anyway, thanks you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.